On March 27th, we are finally going to see some longer-awaited, significant sandbox changes in Destiny 2. We've heard about them a lot already. We're going to be seeing movement changes, weapon and ability changes across the board, big PvP changes. And so in this video, I wanted to focus specifically on weapons that you should keep your eyes out for going into the March 27th update. So of course, as I mentioned, a lot of stuff is changing in this update. Some of the changes have been pretty well received. I would say that most of them have been well received. There are a couple of outliers as always, but I wanted to focus specifically on weapons in this video because there are a lot of things changing. We're going to see some stuff brought down, some generic weapon archetype buffs, which are definitely going to have an influence on the game, but also you have to factor in big changes to perks that are coming in the game as well. But a big one here is that 450 RPM auto rifles, Uriel's Gift, Positive Outlook, they are all having a nerf to range and accuracy, which is going to have a pretty big influence. 450 RPM autos are, however, the kind of target time to kill that Bungie are going for with primary weapons, so most of the things that are being buffed in an effort to compete with that general time to kill. And so that means pulse rifles is going to be one of the bigger segments of this video. There is going to be increased PvE damage for all pulse rifles. Naturally, it's going to be interesting to try things like Heart of Time from FWC in PvE because you'll get the new buff to pulse rifle damage in general, but also another base damage buff for the particular archetype that Heart of Time is in, and you'll also see a buff to Dragonfly, which increases its damage and blast radius significantly. So all around, this rapid fire frame class will get a buff, but Heart of Time will technically see numerous buffs all at the same time. It may finally be the pulse rifle we hoped it would be to begin with. For the lowest rate of fire class of pulse rifles, there will be a general buff to damage and a slight increase in rate of fire, so things like Legal Action will certainly be worth taking for a spin, considering that Rampage is being changed to actually last longer, so it's generally going to be more effective. However, I think that the adaptive frame pulse rifles will benefit more from this particular buff. In particular, you have things like Inaugural Address from the Leviathan raid, and this is arguably one of the real god roles in Destiny 2. You've got a choice of Outlaw or Ambitious Assassin, and then Kill Clip. So Inaugural Address will see a damage buff as well as a rate of fire increase, so it's going to be able to put out quite a bit more damage in PvE, and the rate of fire bump is going to make this pulse field generally more rewarding. It doesn't end there though, because Kill Clip will also be getting a PvE buff, meaning that we'll see even more damage once again. So I think Inaugural Address in particular, but also other well-rolled weapons in this class are going to be worth keeping your eye on. Adaptive frame pulses will also be worth watching in PvP. Again, Inaugural has a lot of potential because it's not all that bad right now, you know? Its biggest competitor in mid-range, which is the 450 RPM autos, are going to see that effective nerf. And this also means that our lightweight frame weapons like Nightshade are going to be that bit more competitive. The Nightshade class will see a small damage boost to its precision modifier as well, so that'll also affect PvP. But there is one class which is really going to be dominant in PvP if you ask me. So the rapid fire frame pulses like the Autumn Wind or Darkest Before are actually getting a base damage increase, which will affect, of course, PvP. And these things are already pretty well used in the Crucible as far as pulse rifles go. I use Autumn Wind quite a bit on console, and Darkest Before in particular is very popular on PC. And considering that the big contender, once again, those 450 RPM autos are taking a hit, paired with a small damage increase, I think the rapid fire frame pulses are going to be some of the key primaries in the Crucible in particular. They're great right now, they're going to get better, and their main contender is going down a peg. So it's pretty clear which way this is going to go. Moving away from the pulse rifles though, it's worth mentioning that scouts aren't really going to see too much change. In PvE, they're going to be getting stronger, so there's no complaints there. For PvP, nothing's going to change significantly unless the low rate of fire scouts become a 3-tap because of their new damage buff, although that does seem pretty unlikely. It seems more like a PvE buff more than anything, so scouts at long range are going to maintain their dominance. Also, the buffs to certain perks are of course going to be influential. Dragonfly might turn out to be pretty good, and if it does, Tome Patrol could be very prevalent, especially as it comes with high caliber rounds as well. So while there aren't going to be massive significant changes, particular weapons might just pop out a little bit. For hand cannons, we will be seeing a generic PvE buff. Better Devils is probably still going to be the king in PvE, but Outliers will also get some love. In PvP though, consoles in particular, hand cannons are getting more accuracy from the hip and more ADS accuracy. Essentially, hand cannons should see legitimate improvements when it comes to hitting shots, and this will be most welcomed in the Crucible. Now, I don't see the meta of which hand cannons are good really changing all that much, but in general, like I say, they should get better. Better Devils is still going to be popular. I think Midnight Coup is a great hand cannon with great perks, and it'll only get better. It'll also be worth keeping your eye on things like older Sister 3 from New Monarchy, and I think the slower rate of fire hand cannons, especially Steady Hand from the Iron Banner, because it's very consistent. You know, if you have a good shot, these things are only gonna get better. The key takeaway here is that that main contender is being knocked back a few pegs and hand cannons are getting better. When we talk about sidearms right now, there are a few alarm bells going off when it comes to PvP. So firstly, sidearms will see a damage increase in PvE. Again, this is awesome. They will also see a host of changes which will affect gameplay everywhere, including hipfire and ADS accuracy increases, increased inventory to carry more ammo, and increased minimum range, and a bonus for movement on all sidearms when ADSing. So yeah. If you think about things like Last Hope, Traveler's Judgment, I don't think it's safe to say that they will plague the Crucible, but it does seem entirely possible when you consider that movement speeds are also being bumped up. This is one of those where it's hard to say exactly what will happen, but sidearms certainly aren't going anywhere in PvP. If you want to be ready, then keep Last Hope, obviously. Also, the other Omolon sidearms are pretty good. You've got the Eulogy. Also, Traveler's Judgment from the Forge on Mercury is very good, and it has Headseeker as well. I definitely want to hear what you guys think about that change to sidearms though. The main thing I would say on the front of SMGs is that they're getting a PvE buff. Things like Risk Runner might be that bit more appealing. Also, Antiope or the Conqueror 2 from the Mercury Forge are going to be worth looking at because they both have Kill Clip, which is once again getting that damage buff in PvE. So there are a couple of weapons which are getting multiple buffs in the SMG class. And now we get to the heavy weapons, and there are two areas where I think people generally want to see the most change, in particular sniper rifles. Also shotguns. Fusion rifles aren't receiving any changes in this update. Linear fusions are getting a few buffs, but I don't think it's going to influence PvE too much, and probably not PvP either. Nothing's changing really with rockets, so they're still going to be, you know, prominent in the Crucible. So shotguns and snipers really have the biggest potential to change. All shotguns are getting a bonus PvE damage and bonus ammo carry across the board. In PvE, Hawthorns or Perfect Paradox are simply just going to get better than they are right now. In PvP, it's pretty much the same situation. If there are any shotguns you're using at the moment, they are going to get better. For PvP, I personally like the higher impact shotguns, and with higher movement speed, more ammo, and more ammo capacity, I think we could see a slight return of the higher impact shotguns in the Crucible, much more like we had in D1. So things like Deadpan Delivery, that's a very consistent shotgun in PvP, has pretty good range. You also have the precision shotguns, and these are getting an increase to aim assist, so if you like nailing those slug headshots, again, things are only getting better for those weapons. We'll have to see how the rest of the changes pan out, because I feel like for shotguns, most of them aren't terrible. It's really how the ammo works and how the game plays that influences their use in the Crucible. On the other hand though, we have snipers, so we are going to see increased damage on snipers in PvE, increased precision multiplier and aim assist across the board, as well as increased ammo carry. Most of us already know one of the best snipers in D2 is Alone as a God, and I think this will be the go-to for folks jumping back in with a sniper, because it's a decent archetype, comes with triple tap, the PvE damage king for snipers, and then you have snapshot, which is fantastic for PvP. It's not quite like the god rolls of old, but its stats, perks, and then, you know, scope, zoom, and speed do make it pretty much the best legendary sniper around. In terms of recommendations though, honestly guys, I don't snipe in D2 anymore, and I haven't since D2 dropped. I think it's pretty similar for a lot of people. Of course, we've seen the clip from Bungie that I'm playing in the background. March 27th will not be the end of changes to snipers. The fix for flinch will actually arrive in May, so it's possible that some snipers will see a lot more use than they do right now. I can pretty much promise you though that Alone as a God will be the #1 at the moment, regardless of what happens. It's just too good of a sniper. Of course, there are other snipers in the game, but I think Alone as a God just has too much appeal, unless of course we get a better sniper in the next expansion or something. But really, those are my notes on the upcoming update on March 27th, guys. I think the weapons I've spoke about here are going to be some of the key ones to keep your eyes on. I don't feel like this update is going to completely alter the game. I think it's going to make some very positive changes in PvP. I think all of the PvE stuff, you know, weapons generally just getting more powerful is really, really good. And assuming, you know, that these are positive steps forward and Bungie are still, you know, considering the weapon system and things like that for later later on down the road. I think the next thing on the table needs to be bringing in more weapon perks and making sure the rolls that we get are godly, right? That's not a vote for me to keep random rolls out of the game. You guys know I'm personally a fan of that, but I think at the very least, if that isn't going to happen anytime soon or ever, then we absolutely need more god rolls, more very well-rolled weapons. But let me know your thoughts, guys. Let me know which weapons you're holding on to, any that you think are going to be awesome after the update. Be sure to drop me that comment below, and if you have enjoyed this video, a like really helps me out on the channel, guys. It's very much appreciated. If you're new around here, feel free to hit that subscribe button to see more Destiny 2 content. For now though, I appreciate you watching, and I hope you have an awesome day.